California sunlight streamed across the polished oak floor, painting warm rectangles on the rug. Liam Callahan stood by the window, his back to the room, watching the distant Pacific waves. His fingers tightened around a cool, heavy tumbler of bourbon, the ice nearly gone. The silence in the beach house was profound, broken only by the faint, rhythmic sigh of the tide. It was a silence he'd grown used to, a monument to his own mistakes. He turned, his gaze landing on the one splash of color in the muted room. A vibrant painting propped on a side table. A landscape of Point Reyes, all swirling skies and dramatic cliffs. In the corner, a tiny, almost hidden signature, Elijah. It was a gift, given a lifetime ago. Or was it only 5 years? His phone buzzed, a sharp intrusion. His assistant's name flashed on the screen. Mr. Callahan? There's a designer here for the final interview. He insists you know him. His name is Elijah Reed. The glass almost slipped from Liam's hand. The world seemed to tilt, the sound of the ocean fading to a dull roar in his ears. He managed a single strangled word. Send him in. The door opened, and there he was. Time had refined him, sharpening the delicate beauty into something more defined, more assured. His hair was shorter, his shoulders straighter in a well-cut suit, but his eyes, those hadn't changed. They held the same complex, storm cloud gray, fixed on Liam with an intensity that stole the air from the room. Elijah didn't wait for an invitation. He crossed the space, each step deliberate, until he was close enough for Liam to catch the faint, familiar scent of linseed oil and clean cotton. Elijah's voice was low, a tremor running through it. Liam Callahan. I'm back. I love you. Will you be with me now? A ghost of his old, hesitant smile appeared. If not, that's okay. I can move in first. Feelings can grow. Behind Elijah, Liam's assistant stood frozen in the doorway, her hand flying to her mouth. Liam felt something crack deep inside his chest, a dam of 5 years of carefully constructed control giving way. A single, hot tear traced a path down his cheek. His reply was a raw whisper. Yes. Elijah's composure shattered then, relief and longing flooding his features. He reached out, his fingers brushing Liam's, a touch that sent a jolt through them both. The assistant silently closed the door, leaving them in the sun-drenched quiet. The emotions that swirled between them were too vast, too tangled to name. Liam had wanted to chain this man to his side, yet he'd emptied his hands and set him free. Elijah had chased the horizon with a fierce hunger, only to find his compass forever pointed back to this shore. Perhaps only now, in this impossible return, were they starting to understand the first, fragile notes of the thing called love. Liam's world had always been a gilded cage. His parents, eternally wrapped in their own passionate orbit, existed as beautiful, distant satellites. His oldest brother, Marcus, was a fortress of ambition, his life a chess game played with corporate acquisitions. His other brother, Julian, was a cautionary tale whispered about at family gatherings. A love so consuming it had built its own prison, and the key had been thrown away by the one it was meant to hold. Liam had met Elijah Reed on the sprawling campus of Stanford. He'd seen the small group of trust fund legacies circling, their laughter sharp and mocking. In the center stood Elijah, clutching a worn canvas bag, his posture defensive yet impossibly graceful. His face was a shock of delicate beauty against the aggressive backdrop of brick and privilege. Liam watched as Carter Thorne, a smug legacy from a rival tech dynasty, sneered something Liam didn't catch, reaching out to flick Elijah's collar. Something cold and protective snapped into place. Liam moved without thinking, his hand closing around Carter's wrist. His smile was all easy charm, but his grip was iron. The jacket he supposedly stained. What's the brand? I'll have my accountant cut you a check. The group fell silent, dispersing like smoke. Elijah lifted his head, his gray eyes wide. Thank you, he murmured, his voice like quiet music. He was gone before Liam could reply. The next day, Elijah found him near the library. He pressed 2 warm breakfast burritos into Liam's hands, his fingers brushing Liam's for a fleeting second. For yesterday, he said, already turning away. They're just from the dining hall. I hope they're okay. Liam stood there, holding the burritos, feeling an unfamiliar warmth spread through his chest. He began to notice Elijah everywhere. A solitary figure sketching under the redwoods, sunlight dappling through the leaves onto his focused face. Sitting alone in the vast cafeteria, picking at a simple salad. Liam started bringing him double portions from the gourmet food trucks, claiming he'd ordered too much. Elijah would accept with a small, grateful smile, and in return, he began giving Liam beautifully rendered postcards of local landscapes. Their friendship became a quiet refuge. Liam drove Elijah up the coast to Big Sur so he could paint the cliffs. Elijah sat through Liam's torturous finance lectures, dozing peacefully on his shoulder. One evening, watching the sunset paint the sky in fiery hues over the Pacific, Elijah called them best friends. Liam knew with absolute certainty that he didn't want to be Elijah's best friend. He wanted everything. He'd spent a fortune trying to create the perfect moment. A private chef at the Malibu house prepared a meal overlooking the ocean. A drone light show mimicked the Milky Way above them. Elijah's eyes shone with an artist's delight. Later, Liam showed him the custom-built studio, stocked with every high-end supply imaginable. Finally, heart hammering against his ribs, he led Elijah to the master suite. He'd even commissioned a sleek metal wall sculpture that read, "Welcome home, Elijah." The light in Elijah's eyes didn't brighten. It died. The smile vanished from his lips. He took a step back, his gaze darting to the door. "Liam, it's late. I should get back to the dorms." Liam blocked his path, desperation making him clumsy. He pulled Elijah into an embrace, feeling the slender body tense. "Stay with me. I'm in love with you. This can be our home." Elijah struggled, but Liam had been trained in Krav Maga since he was a kid. The effort was futile. "Let me go. This isn't love, this is kidnapping. It's a crime. If it's a crime, they'll arrest my brother first," Liam muttered, repeating Julian's twisted logic. He tried to sound menacing. "If you don't stay nicely, I'll have to find another place for you. Somewhere dark. No windows. Maybe rats." Elijah went still. A moment later, Liam felt the damp heat of tears soaking through his shirt. Panic surged. Julian hadn't covered this. "Don't cry. I'm lying. I'd never put you somewhere like that. You're hurting me," Elijah whispered. Liam instantly released him, seeing the red marks his fingers had left on that pale skin. Elijah retreated like a startled deer. "Liam, we're friends. That's all. I don't want to be just friends." Liam's voice was thick. "I've never done this before, but I'll give you anything. Just tell me what you want." Elijah looked at him, those gray eyes searching. "You don't know how to love someone. Real love doesn't make the other person feel trapped." He took a shaky breath. "You know the rumors about me on campus. My reputation, it's already ruined." "I know you're good," Liam insisted fiercely. "I've seen you feeding the stray cats by the engineering building. You're the only one who's gentle with them." Then, to his astonishment, Elijah stepped forward and wrapped his arms around Liam in a fragile hug. "You're the best person I've ever met," he murmured into Liam's shoulder. "You're not trying to scare me. You just don't understand. Take me back to campus. Next time, I'll teach you." The promise was a lifeline. Teach you. It meant he'd come back. Liam, who learned complex algorithms in an afternoon, could certainly learn this. He agreed, calling a car to take Elijah back. But the lesson was cut short. A few weeks later, Liam found Elijah burning with fever in his dorm, his bedding soaked, his contest entry paintings shredded on the floor. His roommates, paid off by Carter Thorne, had done their work. Liam carried him to the hospital, then returned to the dorm and delivered a brutal, efficient lesson of his own. Afterwards, Elijah, still pale and coughing, agreed to stay at the beach house. Just until the competition is over, he said quietly. And you have to promise. No traps. No traps, Liam swore. That night, lying in Liam's king-sized bed, Elijah stared in wonder as Liam activated the smart lighting. The ceiling dissolved into a perfect, moving replica of Van Gogh's Starry Night. The stars swirled. The cypress tree seemed to sway. Elijah sat up, reaching a hand toward the artificial cosmos, a real, unguarded smile lighting his face. Liam, it's incredible. Liam told him things he'd never told anyone. About the army of nannies and bodyguards who were paid for proximity, not affection. About the empty spaces at the dinner table that were never filled. Elijah listened, his hand finding Liam's under the covers, their shoulders touching. For the first time in his life, Liam didn't feel alone when he fell asleep. Weeks turned into a month. Elijah made him avocado toast and smoothie bowls for breakfast. They drove to class together in Liam's Aston Martin. The bullying stopped. Elijah won his competition and took Liam to a late-night taco truck to celebrate, their fingers sticky with salsa. They went to New Zealand, lying in a glass-roofed cabin under the brilliant smear of the Milky Way in Tekapo. They drove through the lavender fields of Santa Ynez Valley, the purple rose stretching to meet the blue sky. In Liam's eyes, even a fog-shrouded view of Half Dome was romantic, because Elijah was there, his hand in Liam's. At an auction in New York, Liam saw Elijah's gaze linger on a vintage Rolex Submariner, a classic piece with a history. When the bidding war started with a rival from an old-money Boston family, Theodore Winslow, Liam didn't hesitate. He drove the price up relentlessly, finally locking eyes with Winslow across the room. "Keep going if you want," Liam said, his voice carrying. "But you won't get the Ming vase for your grandfather either." Winslow backed down. Liam placed the watch on Elijah's wrist. "It suits you," he said simply, ignoring the stunned look in Elijah's eyes. Back in Malibu, deliriously happy after Elijah finally agreed to give them a real try, Liam ran through the automated garden sprinklers and caught a vicious cold. Elijah nursed him tirelessly, skipping his own classes. When Liam was better, he insisted Elijah attend a special guest lecture. "Bring me back a coronet from that place downtown," he said, nudging him out the door. But the loneliness was instant and profound. He drove to campus to surprise Elijah after class. He saw him first standing under an oak tree. Then he saw the scene. A flustered young woman, Elijah gently plucking a leaf from her hair, handing her a tissue with a soft, intimate smile. It was a look Liam knew well. Theodore Winslow's smooth voice sounded beside him. "He's not the innocent you think. He's a climber. His best asset is his face. He did the same thing to me. Took my money for his tuition and then had the gall to act offended when I expected reciprocity. I didn't orchestrate the bullying, but I didn't stop it. And that fall down the stairs? He saw me coming and let himself trip. The soaked bedding, the fever, all part of the act to hook a bigger fish. You." Liam turned and hit him. It was a messy, graceless fight, ended by campus security. Later, walking home with Elijah under the dappled light, Liam didn't ask. "I trust you," was all he said, echoing Elijah's own past words about mutual trust. Elijah squeezed his hand. "I just saw someone struggling and thought of how I used to feel. I'm sorry. I'll keep my distance from now on." Liam believed him. He wanted to believe him. Then Julian's world imploded. His longtime partner, Leo, had finally escaped, using a shard of broken glass not just as a threat, but drawing a thin, desperate line across his own throat to secure his freedom. Julian was shattered, a ghost kneeling on the driveway. "Wasn't I good to him?" he asked Liam, his eyes hollow. Liam thought of Leo when he'd first met him. Bright, funny, full of a restless energy that had slowly been dimmed. Maybe you gave him everything except what he actually wanted. That night, holding Elijah close, Liam felt a chilling premonition. He found the hidden application a week later, tucked inside a portfolio. A fully completed form for the Royal College of Art in London. The head of the design school, an old friend of Liam's father, called for confirmation. Elijah says you're supportive. Shall I approve it? Liam sat at his desk, Julian's old key, a symbolic relic, cold in his palm. He could force the issue. He could lock the door. But he remembered Leo's eyes, the terrifying resolve in them. He thought of Elijah's own quiet determination. When Elijah came home, Liam pretended everything was normal. They watched Casablanca. In bed, Elijah initiated a kiss that quickly grew heated, his hands roaming. Liam's body responded instantly, but he gently caught Elijah's wrists. Is this a goodbye gift? He asked softly into the dark. The silence stretched. I want to go, Elijah finally admitted, his voice small. Stay. I'll get you the best mentors here. A guaranteed career.
I'm sorry.
This opportunity, it's everything I've worked for. Then I'll come with you. You can do whatever you want, Elijah whispered, turning his face away. Liam understood. The yes that wasn't a yes. The together that meant apart. He wiped the tears from Elijah's cheeks. Don't cry. It makes my chest hurt. He made his decision. While Elijah slept, he tore up the first-class ticket he'd already booked for himself and dropped the shreds, along with Julian's key, into the kitchen compactor. At LAX, he pressed an envelope into Elijah's hand. A severance package. Don't struggle over there. Have a brilliant life. He listed the blessings. Success, happiness, freedom. Then turned and walked away before Elijah could see him break. He watched the plane become a silver speck and wondered if he'd just made the best or worst decision of his life. The house was a museum of absence. The watch was left in its velvet box, a note beneath it.
I'm sorry.
Months later, he ran into Theodore Winslow at a sleek bar in Century City. Theodore, drink in hand, was smug. Told you he was a user. He played us both. You must be furious. Liam studied the amber liquid in his own glass. I knew most of it. Not the specifics, but the shape of it. He was backed into a corner with only 2 coins to bet. I had a mountain of chips. He won because I wanted him to. I wanted his truth, even if it was just a sliver. Theodore stared, then barked a laugh. You Callahans. A family of hopeless romantics. Maybe they were. Liam found a bleak comfort in the choice. He hadn't been outsmarted. He had surrendered. He checked on Elijah from a distance over the years, through intermediaries and alumni reports. He thrived. That, Liam told himself, had to be enough. Elijah's earliest memory was of oil paints and quiet desperation. His adoptive father, Arthur, a renowned architect, was a man of exquisite, sterile taste. He'd chosen Elijah from a group home, he later learned, because of an uncanny resemblance to his college roommate and lifelong obsession, David. Arthur crafted Elijah into a living tribute. The same art major, the same mannerisms, a vessel for a love that had never been spoken. Arthur drank bourbon and traced the lines of Elijah's face, calling him David. When Elijah confronted him, Arthur's gaze turned clinical. You're perceptive. Remember, everything you are is because of me. You can be my masterpiece, or you can go back to being nothing. Elijah learned to perform. He absorbed the stories of Arthur and David's youth, a stand-in for a ghost. His escape plan was for his 18th birthday. But David died suddenly of a heart attack. Arthur, in a final, dramatic gesture, revised his will, left everything to a charity in David's name with a note about reuniting in another life, and stepped in front of a commuter train. The note he left for Elijah read, "You were never a convincing substitute." Adrift and penniless, Elijah worked his way through his final year of high school and into Stanford on sheer grit and scholarships. He waited tables at an upscale restaurant in San Jose, using his looks to maximize tips. Theodore Winslow appeared like a scripted hero, handsome, wealthy, conveniently solving small crises. Elijah played the vulnerable, grateful ingenue perfectly, until he saw Theodore kissing a woman in a hotel lobby, laughing about a charming diversion. Theodore's plan, Elijah overheard, was to gift him to a business associate. Elijah took the money Theodore had already given him for expenses and vanished. He thought he was free. Then he saw Theodore on campus. The harassment campaign was subtle, vicious, and effective. Elijah was isolated, his reputation in tatters. He needed a counterweight, someone Theodore's crowd genuinely feared. Liam Callahan was that counterweight. Wild, untamed, moving through the world with a kind of blunt, uncalculated force. Elijah engineered their second chance meeting. Their friendship was part of his strategy. But Liam was nothing like Theodore. His loneliness was real, his affection guileless. He offered everything with open, scarred hands. The proposal of a gilded cage terrified Elijah, but he talked his way out. The subsequent attack by his roommates, however, showed him the futility of fighting alone. He chose the more predictable devil. Moving in with Liam was a tactical retreat. He hadn't counted on the quiet, the genuine care, the way Liam watched him sleep, his touch reverent, the way he remembered Elijah's favorite kombucha flavor or defended him without being asked. Liam learned to cook terrible omelets because he thought it was what people in love did. He was a student of devotion, and Elijah, against every wall he'd built, found himself becoming the subject. When the acceptance from London came, it was a lifeline to his original dream. He hid the form, guilt a sour taste in his mouth. The night he tried to offer himself to Liam, a final, twisted transaction, Liam's gentle refusal felt like a condemnation. His quiet "you have something to tell me?" laid everything bare. At the airport, seeing Liam's forced smile, the envelope pressed into his hand, Elijah felt an urge to tear up his own ticket. He didn't. He boarded the plane, the watch Liam had given him a heavy weight in his carry-on. In London, he was successful, celebrated. He dated a little, but it felt hollow. A kind female classmate asked him out, and he reflexively said, "I'm not into women." The moment the words left his mouth, he knew the truth he'd been fleeing. He missed Liam with a physical ache. He realized his freedom felt like exile. All his award-winning work was infused with the blues and grays of the California coast, with the memory of a specific, intense gaze. Liam had seen all his calculations, all his deceptions, and had chosen to love him anyway. He had given Elijah the world not as a cage but as a launch pad. The decision to return wasn't hard. The walk into Liam's office was the most terrifying and right thing he'd ever done. Now, in the sunlit room, years of distance collapsed. Liam's arms around him felt like coming up for air after too long underwater. This was the choice. Not the one born of desperation or strategy, but the one born of clarity. He was here because every other place, no matter how grand, was just a space waiting to be filled by this man. Later, in the bedroom under the familiar, projected stars, the vintage watch was cool against Elijah's skin as Liam moved over him. The universe swirled above them, vast and forgiving. Liam's voice was a rough prayer against his ear. "Elijah, my Elijah, I love you so much." Elijah could only gasp, clinging to him, lost in a sensation that was finally, unequivocally real. This was not a trap he'd negotiated his way into. This was a harbor he'd sailed a long way to find. In the surrender, in the mutual, knowing choice, he discovered a freedom far more profound than any he'd ever chased. It was the freedom of being fully known and loved without reservation. It was the freedom of coming home.